the way that I've done this, okay? You all have names in here. I just want to make sure there's fairness here. All right, and any of you want to, afterward, you can come up and inspect and see that all the names are in here. I will leave them on display over on this side of the table, okay? But now, to make sure that I'm not biased as to which one's on top, I'm actually going to dump them and close my eyes. Okay? Is everybody comfortable with that approach? Does that seem fair? All right. Okay, so let's make sure I don't grab that delicious cookie. Be able to replay this whole thing, right?
The camera's still on, right?
Yes, yes. We're going to slow it down and slow down and replay. All right, so I'm going to dump them here, right? All of them there. This is great. I've never done this before. I think we're backtracking. All right. All right, here we go. The winner is Jeff.
Yeah.
You pass that over to him. Had I not chosen Jeff, it would have been, oh, Jeff. You're all in here, I promise.
You knew who needed it.
Yes, it was all choreographed.
That guy needs
We've
help.
been trying to find a way to say it, but we figured, all right, this will be the way we get at it. All right, you ready to go in this last section?
Yeah.
All right, we're present, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is this is kind of the roots of Arbinger. From the beginning, it's been all about conflict resolution. And the way that we think about conflict typically does a disservice, because we tend to think of conflict as these acute situations that involve violence. But really, conflict is any impasse or anything that is keeping us from having a collaborative or an innovative environment. Anything that is keeping us from being able to collectively be greater than the sum of our parts is ultimately conflict. There's a conflict in this thing. And so we're going to spend this last section on really one of the core and critical areas of what the Arbinger Institute and Arbinger Training and Consulting is all about. We're going to really end up employing all the frameworks, the maps, and the tool. Now, as I say that starts sounding like a lot of time. Don't worry. We're moving along fine. We'll have you out here at a good time. But we're going to bring all these things to bear on this particular element. Okay? All right. So let's just pause for a second. First of all, do you recognize this frame? What is this a framework of? Do you remember? What is it showing here? Collusion, right? All right. So how can the outside, inside out framework help us to resolve conflict? It's a little bit rhetorical. We're going to pull this approach. Okay? Go ahead. So we're going to go ahead and rotate it back. Okay, so just so you know, let's go back again. Here we are with collusion. And so now to take that and turn that into a framework from which we can begin to resolve and transform conflict, we're going to keep those elements. We're just going to transform it a little bit and change it. Okay? So I'm actually going to put these up here. And I realize it might seem a bit strange. Just think of these two chairs back to back. Okay? Now, why do I place them back to back? First of all, this is conflict. They're not working together. Okay? Right? Where are they facing?
They're going in a different direction.
Do they see each other as people? No. They don't see each other, right? In this case, they're irrelevancies. They're just not even, I see everywhere but that person. Right? So they don't see each other as people. Completely unaware of each other's humanity, okay? All right, so let's just think of these two chairs back to back. Here's the question. How would you situate the chairs in order to show the ending of collusion? So right now they're like this. How do I show a collusion ending? What's required of these chairs to show the end of collusion, to show the end of conflict? Okay. So, like this. Okay.
90-degree angle.
That is some funky innovation for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're still on the top of your game. All right. All right, let's take a look at this. You're all right. You can make an argument that those all make sense to some extent, okay? Let's go back here for a second. This is the way the collusion ends. You see the gradual transformation. Now, wait a second, just say. Nothing's happened over here. How could that be the end of collusion? How could this possibly be the end of collusion? This person, does this person see this individual as a person? No. So how are we ending the collusion by only having one person turn their chair? What's happening there? I know, deep thinking. We're having to dig back into things
I was
here.
thinking that you can't change their behavior or their mindset. Maybe you can change your own.
Yeah.
I got other spots.
Yes, you're still digging into some deep buckets here. I like this. Way to go. Gwen, you're right. You're right. Yes, it's 3 o'clock. You're right. Any positive answer after 3 p.m. on the second day deserves applause. Okay? All right, and cookies. All right, plenty more. All right, this is what I want you to think about. Okay? The difference between these two is that one person decides to start seeing the other as a person. Okay? Now, if you remember, collusion, it's this spiral that keeps going around and around and around, right? In other words, how many people does it require for a collusion to continue? 2. If one person says, I'm no longer playing that game, doesn't the collusion end? Yeah. Now, that other person may still be in the box for it, and they still be trying their very best to keep that collusion alive. But if that individual is choosing instead to see them as a person and deciding not to react in a certain way, but choosing to see them as a person and then choosing not to increase and continue that collaboration, it ends. You see how that works? Too often, when it comes to conflict resolution, the thinking is in order to end a collusion, both parties need to decide to end the conflict. And yet, really, the most damaging conflicts are the ones where there's a collusion going on, where they perpetuate things. It doesn't mean that everything becomes perfect when one person stops and one's still involved there. But that's spiraling out of control. So think for a second. Go back. You remember that video of the cars in the parking lot?
Yes.
What if one person had decided not to play into that collusion? Would they have ended up at the very end cannonballing toward each other at the speed of 3 miles an hour with the shopping cart passing by? Wouldn't have happened, right? And all that damage wouldn't have been done. There might have still been some initial scarring, some initial damage from that first incident. Maybe somebody leaving with some hard feelings. But look at all the damage that would have never occurred if only one person had decided to turn the chair. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. All right. What we're looking at here is the role that outside inside out plays in transforming conflicts. And again, it's nothing new. Outside inside out. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. Outside inside out. Let's just go through it just to make sure. Okay. Outside, what are their outside triangles, objectives, and issues and challenges? Inside, which of those will help? Which of those will I help with and how? And 3, keep focusing on helping where I can. Now again, not to keep replaying all of my foolish mistakes, but to go back to that banquet again. That was very much in my mind, we were entrenched in conflict. And the thing that broke through and allowed me emotionally as well as intellectually to disengage from that conflict and to no longer keep it going was when there was an element of that person's outside triangles that I was introduced to. If somebody, and I mentioned this before, if somebody had come to me and said, Dave, you just got to get past it. Just let it go. Maybe she's got other stuff going on. The emotions were so strong. Do you think I could have just disengaged from that? There's no way. I don't have that kind of power. I wish I did, that kind of willpower. But what it required was for an element of that individual's outside triangle to become known. Okay? Okay? What do you think it is? Does this make sense? Okay? All right. I want to introduce somebody to you. I introduced Charles to you. Yes. For variety's sake. This is, again, a great, there's a reason why we show Chip in some of these. These situations are acute. Oftentimes, we think, all right, well, yeah, that's great, it can work over time, but when a lot of the conflicts are just here and now, it's happening right now. And so what we're showing here is that even in these acute situations, you can see the power of introducing and actually working with some of these principles. And I want you to see what could become a very significant conflict and how it's resolved by doing this outside, inside out. And I want you to notice if there's one person in this picture that says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and turn my chair back. I'm not going to go ahead and go back to back. And to see what happens to a potential conflict, okay? Now, again, same principles can be employed in an entrenched, intransigent, long-term conflict as well as an acute, highly urgent type of conflict. Okay, but let's go ahead and watch Charles as he plays this out.
As we talked about, my job, my squad, we serve high-risk search warrants on